Welcome back, everybody, to Gringos, Liberados, and it's begun. It started to happen. We saw the cracks, we saw the writing on the wall, and we've finally seen it. We finally saw the first major blow to the Loud Dynasty in 2 years, 4 splits. It's starting to happen, guys. We've started to see the change. My name is Trajan. Join my 404 and RMC on this episode as we continue through playoffs, where we had the second round of the winners bracket and the first round of the lower bracket, and we've had a much less emotionally distressing weekend, I would say. Some very exciting results, some series that were perhaps more exciting than some people thought they were going to be in different ways, but we've got 3 to look at, and the first one was Loud Pain, I believe. I think that was the first one they hit us with. Or was it Fluxu Furia? What did they give us to open it up with?
It was unfortunately Fluxu Furia.
Okay, fine. We'll build up to Loud Pain then. So, Fluxu, we don't even have to build up as far, because Fluxu Furia was a much less... It wasn't a depressing series if you're just watching to see a fun best of 5, right? If you're just watching League to watch a fun series of League of Legends, you're like, cool, best of 5 goes to game 5, love that. Now, was it what we expected? No. Was it maybe what we wanted for Furia? Not quite, but you know, it was fun. It was a fun 5 hours.
In the first place, Trishan, who was watching that series expecting a best of 5? That's my big question.
Yeah,
I think everybody's expecting a nice, clean, easy 3-0, and then somehow, like, hey, whether it be Fluxu punching up, Furia punching down, something happened and we got 5 games.
Let the record show this is the most that 3-2 loss was the best playoff series Fluxu have ever had in their history as a CBLOL franchise. Was losing in 5 games instead of either getting swept or losing 3-1. That is what Super Fluxu accomplished. This is what this Fluxu accomplished.
Super Fluxu lost 2-3, did they not, to old VKS? Because Brunsey got caught in mid lane in game 5 playing Kai'Sa or something. I believe.
Was it game 5? I thought it was game 4.
I think
I'll double check.
I'm not 100%. Get the checker out, because
it was.
Yeah, okay, no, you're right. It was game 5. Yeah.
So they've equaled their
Fluxu for 0
for best result. They've still not won a series, which is, I guess, probably the more important thing to take away here is they've still not won a series in playoffs ever. But they came awful close once again, and closer than maybe we thought. Now, the question that you had, RMC, the kind of the way you approached it was, is Fluxu punching up or is Furia punching down? I think, for me, I'm leaning a little bit more towards Furia punching down a little bit, because I think they still, in playoffs generally, have not been the Furia that we wanted them to be. They've only been that Furia in the first 2 games versus Loud. And then as soon as that went wrong, we're still not quite on the path back again, even though games versus Fluxu are messier. They should be stomping Fluxu. They should be absolutely giga stomping them, and they looked stronger against Loud in those first 2 games in the first week. So it's a weird one for Furia, and they need to work out what's going wrong here, because the formula seems to have unraveled a little bit.
Yeah, I'd argue game 5 against Fluxu, they kind of looked like more what we were expecting, like slower pace, low kill game, but very clean game where they don't make many mistakes and they just slowly push.
They're just kind of ahead across the board, and they just win off that. Yeah,
but that's 3 out of 10 games where they look like the Fury we were expecting.
Yeah,
not ideal. And I was just looking it up because I look at this roster. It's seasoned, right? You've got ZZK, Wiz, Tuts, IU, Jojo. All of these guys, like, they've been in playoffs before. But as I was looking through, I realized that actually they're 2 carries. Tuts and IU, their best performers so far in the playoff. Tuts hasn't made a playoff since 2021 on a Flamengo roster, which the org doesn't even exist in CBLOL anymore. 2021, right? And Ayu has never made playoffs as an AD carry. He made it as a support back in 2023 on still Fury at the time, but he played with Trigo this time thing against Trigo. So just I think the lack of experience might be part of it. Like, especially since it's the carries of all people who haven't been in playoffs recently. Maybe they're just a little bit off occasionally in the best of 5s.
Yeah, we're not seeing, like I said, we're not seeing the usual Furia formula of being strictly better than your opponents in the first 15 minutes and then building a platform off that to try and win the rest of the game. And I still think that they are struggling in the draft phase somehow that they lost it versus Loud in game 3, and they still haven't quite gotten their feet under them again since, to be like, this is a formula that we can run that is strong and wins consistently. And there's a lot of different picks now flying around. They were able to hold Fluxu to the 3-2 win, but there's still tanks for ZZK, and now even the carries are getting a bit sketchy. And I think generally the top side for me, ZZK in particular, has been the most like, we're maybe being a bit of a hindrance as much as we're being a helper in these games. As much as IU has not looked quite as good, I wouldn't say he's been dragging the team down awfully. IU and Jojo, they've not been quite as good, but they're still solid. Tuts is still generally putting up decent numbers, even when there's fabled Ari, I suppose, gets banned away. But I think we're really starting to see ZZK struggle when it's only really good tops left. And I think that's a bit of a hole on the map for them.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, I agree. It just seems like the carry performances that we saw him have on INTZ and just give that team a whole other dimension when you had, even on that roster, like, I'm not putting Nosferus and Tuts in the same boat. I think Nosferus was fine, right? And Tuts has been even better, right? But they needed that roster to be, more than some of its parts. And here, it has not been. You see just how, like, what do the other teams have, right? They don't have just like staple top laners. They have top laners that on any given day can make a difference. They have top laners that in these series this weekend were able to just completely change the dynamic of their teams, especially in a meta like this, when we've gone back to a little more tank junglers, right? And the tanks have started to disappear from the top lane. You've got Camille, Renekton, right? A lot of Gwen.
Rumble.
Rumble is a demon. It's so strong. Yone being flexed up there as well, right? They're all champions that, if given the right amount of tools, can take over a game. And ZZK just hasn't cut the mustard on those.
Yeah, it's just like cannon or bust. And what's odd to me about the drafting, actually, Shashan, now that you mentioned it, it's the fact that, for me, Furia refuses to stick with the formulas they have. Mm-hmm. Like, the cannon for ZZK in game 1, good, bad game 2. Yeah. It was not bad in the last 2 games. ZZK just didn't go back to it. That was a choice they made. Same thing, game 3, they win with Senna Ornn in the bot lane. It doesn't get banned away. They just don't go back to it. Which, hey, understandable. I'm not a huge fan of Senna bot lanes. It works, though. And it's kind of weird. It feels like Furia is still trying to test things out, almost. Like, they're not saying that, okay, we're going to commit to a particular style. And I don't know if that's the right call when you keep going to 5 games.
Yeah, I think they're still scrambling a little bit. Well, I think they felt exposed in the Loud series, and they were exposed in that phase in the Loud series. Yeah. And I think they're trying to, hey, what other options do we have? What can we reliably go for? Because when the cannon wasn't available, ZZK mostly went back to the Jax for the last 3 games, and that used to be the ZZK pick. That used to be the, like, don't give this guy Jax, he'll take over your lane, he'll take over your game. And, like, he's still playing Jax, and he's still fine at this champion, but it's just not hitting the same. It doesn't hit like Robo Jax anymore, and it used to hit like Robo Jax. Mm-hmm. So I think that, like, we need to refocus. It's tricky because if you refocus away from your top lane, a lot of people will then start giving them Cassante, giving them tanks, and giving them weak side champions. Yeah. But ZZK doesn't look great at weak side champions. He's not really great. He's not a weak side top laner, so you can't really leave him on his own. But he's not looking as consistent on things you want to invest in either. So I think it puts Wiz in a tough spot. I think Tuts and IU are still reliable carries, but it's a weird dynamic that they're trying to solve on the fly, and they barely solved in time. And they haven't even solved it necessarily, but they barely kind of held it together. I still generally I like Wiz on just like divers, like the Nocturne I think is cool that he's still bringing that back. They didn't win on it, but I like that the Nocturne is still a factor. And I mean, just steal the Sejuani away from Croc next time, I think, because Wiz also plays Sejuani. So maybe that's the prio. I will laugh so hard if we go into the rematch of Loud Furia and Loud just instantly start first picking Talia and going Talia Sedge every single game again, even though they didn't do it once against Pain. They were just like, this beat you like 3 times in a row with very little problem last time. So, like, we're just going to keep doing this because we found the anti-Furia pill, and I hope that isn't, like, how it turns out, but it would be funny if Loud's just like, we know how to beat you guys. Talia, there you go. You lose.
Oh, we'll get to that later, because I actually do think this is a viable strategy. I want to quick shout out to Fluxu, though. I do feel like this best of 5 was the best we've seen since, like, the middle of the split.
Since first round robin. Yeah. No, they looked legitimately good. They looked unified. They looked like they were on the same page. whatever inexplicable separation of team members leading to deaths across the rift we saw in Split 2. Just some of these losses where it was like, oh my god. Like, I don't know if, again, I didn't know if they really solved kind of their fundamental issues where they just had better early games, right? And part of that was, like you said, Trajan, Furia not getting the advantage that we were used to seeing them get in the early game, right? And how much that is Furia, how much that is Fluxu, that's and maybe a meaningless question to answer, but yeah, it doesn't matter, but because they're gone and might be gone forever, but good for them.
I think
I
they're
guess.
probably gone forever. I think it's interesting that, so I was just looking at like overall kind of numbers and KDAs from that series to get a sense of it, that Tuts and IU are still putting up very solid KDAs. 7 KDA for Tuts, 10 for IU. They're great carries. They get big kills, low deaths. They do big damage. They're great. ZZK has a 1.5 KDA. He's got almost as many deaths, twice as many deaths as kills, and he's just kind of, and this is playing Kennen and 3 Jaxes, like this is playing ZZK champs. This is playing champs he's supposed to win on. And I think the only other funny one just is that Shinny went 5-24 over that series.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. I think Shinny still, like, at the end of the day, that's what stuck out to me at the end of this series. It's like, okay, Fluxu, we've started to get back to where we were, but we never got back to, like, first 3 weeks Shinny, where the guy just, like, made the right judgments all the time. Like, I don't know what happened.
And yet, Shinny had a better KDA than ZZK.
He did.
And on top of that, we got to remember, like, the way Shinny plays, he's the primary engage for his team. It's not Scamber's primary engage, it's Shinny. So I expect his KDA to be rather low because I expect him to die. If he doesn't die, that's when Fluxu guarantees their wins in fights. Because if you can't even kill Shinny, you can't kill anybody else in that team.
Yeah.
And I know that Trigo in an interview this week, I think it was with IDL, basically said that, for this series, they basically tried to simplify the game as much as possible. Pick champions of like one button. Yeah. Basically, one button Boruses is 4-4 likes to call them. And you just kind of go in, simplify the game down. I do think it didn't necessarily fix all their problems, but that was a good way to address their problems. And you could see the fundamentals of these players. When it gets that simple, they're good at it. And Fu especially, I think, really benefited from that. Like, he put up some really solid damage numbers. And I think if we're looking at Flux as an org that's out, the players are probably going to have to like find new homes. I think Fu put up a good case for why he wants to still be in CBLOL next split. Why other teams should still be looking at him.
Yeah. I think the only other thing that was interesting to me from this series was that we saw Root use the misfortune to really get an advantage in the bot lane against Furia at multiple points. To like, that was Root's like, I'm just gonna pick this. I don't care what you do. Yep. I'm gonna pick it, and I'm just gonna be better than you. This is the answer for me. And it was like, it was a really impactful champion through that series. The Kai'Sa was obviously big as well, but like, we saw that MF Ezreal matchup a couple times, and IU wasn't able to really be IU in some of those games. It felt like Root was able to do a lot more value over than him. And then in game 1 of this series,
talking about the first round,
in the Loud Fury series, that was just noticeable to me that like we didn't get to see IU try and beat Root because the MF was just too good apparently. And then we came into game 1 of this series and we saw IU Ezreal versus Trigo MF, and Trigo MF got absolutely blasted. The IU Ezreal was so much stronger, so much better, and I was like, oh, it's a Root diff. Okay, so this is not a matchup thing, really. This is a bit of a Root differential, and like,
I can't even call it a Root diff because Root's not okay. If Root's here, okay, Smalley's up here when we're talking about MF. Trigo's down here, so it's like a Trigo diff more than a Root diff.
Yeah, right, so it's like, okay, it's fine. Like, it's not like unworkable, you know what I mean? It's really just, there is an element of who's at the controls here. So that was just interesting to me, that I was like, oh no, he's going back into this matchup. This is how Trigo gets out of lane okay. No, did not get out of lane okay. Had an absolute shocker in that game 1. 28-minute disaster for Fluxu. So yeah.
I'll salute Trigo. True captain right there. He went down with the ship.
He did. My word, he did. So we'll see. That the MF is such a weird one because it is like feels so exploitable, but has been so impactful in certain hands and seems to ruin some matchups, but seems to be fine in others. It's a very strange pick to just be sitting in the normal, like, here's our Zeri and our Zaya and our Kai'Sa, all of our normal kind of, these champions, you love them, you see them every year, and then MF's just like, I'm also like giga relevant right now for some reason, and I just like spoil this sort of matchup chart that we've all been working on for years. It's an interesting element to throw in there.
Yeah, I think that kind of segues us. Unless, sorry, I took over the duties there.
Go
but
for it, bro.
do we have anything else we want to say on the
That was my last
series?
thing. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, in the Loud Pain series, the amount that Kuri did, you want to talk about like the rock paper scissors matchup train, and kind of the different variables you need to have for a good MF draft. Letting Braum through is suicide.
Yep.
Kuri did so much work on that Braum. There were so many fights that Loud actually across the series, Loud like because it was a pretty close 3-0, and that's gonna sound like cope. But no, I think it was. No, I think it was. The first couple games.
Okay.
I thought were close. Actually no, they were close. That's not an opinion. They were close. They ended up being not great, but like it wasn't like game 4 in Red Cade.
Yeah, you look at the
game
charts,
4, that's
it's
a blow.
flat, and then it ends quite quickly. It's not just like roller coaster. It's not just like a mountain that goes straight up. It's like hovering and then it goes back.
There were a lot of fights that were back and forth, right? Game 1 was kind of but like game 2 I thought was really, really close, right? Loud jumped out to a decent lead, if I remember correctly. But point is, the MF was completely neutralized by Kuri's Braum. There were so many fights that even after the MF ult went down and got nobody, Loud still had a decent footing in some of those fights, and you thought, man, if that MF was even like half as potent as it could have been, that would have been fight swinging for Loud.
They'd found a couple of nice like starts to fights that just couldn't complete because the MF was blocked and he was weak and behind in gold, and it was like, this in a vacuum, this is a good catch that Croc or Red or whoever has found, but there's just no ability to actually gain what you'd want to gain off it just because of the state of the game at that point. Also, it's also another interesting just like Ezreal MF matchup with the Ezreal completely clowns on the MF, and it's like, wow, okay, it's just after that point I was like, now I just don't get this
that's also Titan Ezreal.
Yeah, so now I just don't understand it. Like
it took them until game 3 to ban it out.
Yeah.
Well, and again, the Braum too. I think it makes Titan look like an absolute god among men. Yeah, and understandable. He is an incredible AD carrier. That's why him and Smalley are top 2 right now.
Yeah,
but Kuri getting Braum and Titan getting Ezreal, a champion, and Ezreal for Titan's a champion that he used to be known for too. It's not like it's a new pickup for him. He's always been good as a champion. Yeah. He was another one of those guys who used to arcane shift forward aggressively, and he has thrown games that way.
Used to be one of those guys. Yeah, bro. He's still that guy. He is more that guy than any other Ezreal I have seen. That was the one thing that stuck out to me from Titan Ezreal is this man eases in and flashes out so many times, and it always works, and it pains me that it always works, but it's so uniquely Titan. It's so funny, man.
It's on brand and it pains you, Trajan, but it works because it's with Kuri, and Kuri's willing to go in with him every time. And you give him Braum, it enables him so much. I think if you take away the Braum, Titan doesn't look quite as good in the Ezreal. And I don't know what's going on with Loud. We've been criticizing Croc a lot this split. Robo's had his bad moments. Tinones has not been carrying as much as he usually does. But at this point, I am questioning the Loud coaching staff. Stardust, the hell are we doing at this point? Like, that Tinones can't play or is struggling with 80 champions.
You don't love the Smolder mid? Wow. Wow.
Honestly, Kate, the Smolder feels like that's their attempt to try and get Tinones some sort of 80 champion. It wasn't bad.
Yeah. No, it wasn't that bad. Yeah. Like, again, it was useless in the first 20 minutes, but that's Smolder in general. But there were a couple fights where you thought, oh, hang on a second here. Like, there were a couple like fights around the 25-minute mark where you're like, oh, hang on a second. I see the vision here, right? You saw like the splash damage start to tick down. You're like, oh no, it's happening. Smolder things, right? But I agree with you. Putting him on that was like, if nothing else, it's going to be analyzed 6 ways to Sunday because of the result, right? They lost, and like we were talking about this on the Academy co-stream, right? If someone is over the age of 23, just give them Orianna. Surely, like they can do something decent with it. This is what they've grown up playing seasons 4 through 9, like invariably.
Yeah, just give them comfort. As needed. And here's the thing too, I want to highlight too that in that game, even with the Smolder, Tinones still did the most damage. I think he's like 30% of the damage on that team. So he will eventually scale up and be a threat. But my big problem is just like Croc's champion pool is currently under fire. And if Furia was watching, they should be taking notes on how Pain Gaming drafted. We were joking, that Sejuani Maokai for Croc, right? It just highly prioritized the sedge. Yeah, if you take those two champions away, what's Croc got left? He went on Poppy 2 out of 3 of those games. And the Nocturne looked absolutely abysmal. If you're going to pick Nocturne, freaking pick the Ori. Like we were talking about, that's Tino's bread and butter. Give the PB&J. You know, don't split them up. Don't try and be cheesy with it. And the Croc Poppy, it's just not. Okay, I love Poppy. I think Poppy's a good pick. I think we need to see more Poppy. But not with the comps Loud was running. If you're running a Misfortune and you run a Poppy, it gets so hard for them to kind of synergize together. Keeper's Verdict keeps bailing people out. You're kind of stopping the engagement coming through. Like, there is a place for it, I can see, but you need more AoE. And one support isn't it, especially when you're trying to use the Rel. You need somebody else to be primary engage. I don't know. The Loud drops are just like, I'm looking at this going like, okay, the players have issues, yes, but the players are still playing up to a certain level. They should at least be able to contest Red, and they should not be going full 5 game against Furia, just based on the players. Those are drafting issues that's putting them in that situation.
Yeah. So it looks like when I saw them do this composition, I'm like, okay, we're Tinon's win conditioning, we're trying to play, the rest of the 4 are going to play together, they're going to do a wombo combo at Dragon, and then a wombo combo at Herald, and they're going to just try and do the Loud, we're just going to beat you in a fight thing, but they're not going to wait till 25 minutes to do it, because if you do that, you're all behind and you've lost. So, like, you have the Smolder as that win condition, but then they just, like, they got really blasted. Like, they never found they couldn't get the fights they wanted. Like, they were never allowed to do, like, we're going to 4v4 run into each other kind of engagement.
Because you look at the other side of it, and they don't win the 5v5.
Yeah.
Pain drafted Rumble, Sejuani, Braum, Ezreal, and Corki. Corki and Smolder, very similar win con. Smolder outskills. Yeah. But you're trying to team fight into a freaking Sejuani, Rumble, Braum.
Yeah. And you're trying to get like a Rel MF combo on Ezreal when there's also a Braum shield that can be held for it. Like, bro, the chances of this actually happening are very low. And it didn't happen. And then, like, now no one's propping up the Smolder, and you're just getting steamrolled over. So, it's not that I think their drafts, like, don't make any sense. I just think they don't seem able to, like, achieve them. Or maybe the win conditions are too narrow, or maybe they're, like, asking too much of themselves. I don't know, but, like, I feel like they are better served on champions that can allow them to be more individually successful. Players like Root, like, give them more individual agency. Players like Robo, like the Yone was decent in that game. Actually, had the first ever Robo comp Yone game, actually quite good. You know, it was like, okay, fine. If this was in like any other scenario, I'd be like, wow, this is an interesting development. But because the rest of the map is on fire, that's a shame. It didn't matter.
Yeah, and in game 3, they gave Kai'Sa a root, right? And it looked so much better.
Yeah.
You know, the way he ended up playing. Because he had agency. If you're going to pick MF, okay, I know this is a long-standing argument I've been having with Lunar Day, our regular viewer for a long time. She thinks MF absolutely sucks. I think you need setup. And if you're not going to play a team fight, don't pick the MF. It's as simple as that. If Loud doesn't want to commit to it, that's fine. Then pick root something he can actually do his own thing on.
Yeah. So, how did it feel watching this series, RMC, as a Pain fan? And we've had the scenarios before. We had it a week earlier where we were like, oh my god, is Loud about to lose? And then they just didn't, and it was like, wow, this is just happens every year. Loud's gonna Loud. And as this series went on, did you have those doubts in your mind, or were you like, this is too dominant, this is too good for Pain? Or like, were you kind of not believing it until the third Nexus fell?
So the last time Pain beat Loud in Best of 5 was 2022 Split 2. It's been 2 years since it happened. Not gonna lie, this series felt like a dream, like a literal dream sequence. Like, I could not believe they were that dominant. I know 44 said it was like kind of close. Kind of. The gold leads weren't huge, but at the same time, it felt very much, when I was watching, in Pain's control the entire time. Like, it was quiet because Pain was waiting for power spikes, and they played it great. And right up to the third game where they almost threw the game. Like, that... And when that happened, at like just before Baron came up, and I was just like, okay, it was after Baron. Pardon me. It was the I can't remember. Sometime after Baron, they threw a fight right after Dragon on the push, and I was like, oh crap, okay, we're throwing it here because it can't be that good. And then they came back, and I was like, holy crap, like, I can't believe this. Like, Pain is doing so incredibly well, and the people who are stepping up too. It's absolutely nuts. So obviously, Titan and Curry are just smashing the bot lane, but Weiser. He's back in perfect carry form. Karaoke is looking like the absolute goat in the jungle right now. He's making Ivern look absolutely busted. And Dinkedo, beat Tinones all 3 games in lane.
That was a big one.
In some of the counter matchups, and he wins those counter matchups. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is it. This is the year. It's gotta be. Pain's on fire right now.
Yeah.
And in a great way, not in like dumpster fire, like throw it inside kind of on fire.
Yeah, the Takeda Corki was very good. No surprises there. But like when he picked the Lucian, I was like, is this you, Takeda? Are you the guy for this? But he actually kind of was. He kind of was the Lucian guy, and like that moment where he dashes in mid lane and then flashes aggressively forward past the Nautilus hook to secure a kill. I'm like, okay, you're a Lucian guy. Fine. That's all I needed to see. That's a Lucian guy play. I've never seen you do that before. That's cool. I'm now sold. Good for you. Because it was like into the Aurora matchup, and it wasn't like he wasn't getting a massive lead as a Lucian into Aurora. It's obviously it's a new champion. It's a pretty like tricky one to nail down. And Lucian is, if you just don't walk up to Lucian, it's not like a hugely long-range champion, and like there's a fairly simple trading pattern. I think it's quite easy to deal with Lucian from a distance. Just don't get like snowballed over by it. And Dinkedo wasn't crushing the lane, which is normally what you kind of feel like Lucians are there to do. But it didn't matter because he was still able to spike, and then was playing very aggressively with that spike, even if he didn't have an individual lead. And I was like, okay, cool. Now I'm sold. Good job, Dinkedo. Excellent series by him. And yeah, the first actual "you're better than Tinones" moment, like over the course of a series that we've kind of ever seen, to be honest, in that match, at the very least since I've been watching CBLOL.
Yeah, and to give credit to Dinkedo as well, he didn't win the lane in CS in terms of chunking Tinones, but he also did have a lot of pride on the mid lane, which I think was one of the things that kind of screwed Croc, and then by extension Robo, because Karaoke was just able to always get first move and invade and just be at all the objectives first. So yeah, and when you look at the roster, because that draft was Gwen, Sejuani, Lucian, Ezreal, Braum. Yeah. Like you had 3 lanes who all wanted resources, so somebody had sacked something somewhere, and Dinkedo was the guy who did that and still had relevance. So props to him.
Yeah. Do you have confidence in Loud still 4-4? Do you have any faith?
Always got faith, because again, these players have been there and done that before. It's never over till it's over, but things do seem pretty different, man. I think the meta, some combination of the meta plus the coaching staff, like RMC was kind of alluding to, something seems off here. It seems like there's some sort of je ne sais quoi that they can't really overcome. Maybe it's written in the stars that in the last CBLOL ever, kind of the biggest org wins. I don't know. I mean, Pain seem to be playing with a little bit of. They seem to be playing with a lot more freedom and a lot more confidence. They seem really, really unified. All their players right now are clicking and playing at their best. Karaoke is playing a number of different things, right? He had the Ivern late in the series. I forget if it was game 2 or game 3. I think it was game 3. And you know, is making things happen all over the map. Dinkedo, I interviewed him this morning. He was saying that like, look, he's like, my mindset has changed. He said that I'm playing to enjoy the game. Now I'm stopping. I'm not putting as much pressure on myself and inadvertently on the rest of the team. Right? We are actively, you know, we are exchanging negativity for positivity. You kind of mentioned that in respect to Loud as well, right? Like, look, we, especially against Loud, we put so much pressure on ourselves. I put so much pressure on myself. It has not worked out. So I'm going in there, you know, to playing loose. It's working out really great, especially for a guy like Dinkedo, a guy like Titan, who have pretty big personalities. And I mean, especially again, like. You haven't seen Robo take over a game in a while. You haven't seen Tinones take over a game in a while. It's all come down to root, and that is really, really worrying because you need those other dimensions. And again, do I have faith that Loud? Look, right now, if you ask me, I don't think Loud are going to win the split. Could they? Sure. I'd say, you know, if I was to say like Loud or the field, I'd say probably, you know, 30% Loud, 70% the field. That's kind of where I am.
Sure.
Okay.
I'd say like 30% Loud. No. Probably 20. Actually, now that I actually do the math, it's
like, going down.
Tear it down in my head. 20% Loud, 80% the field. I'd say it's like 20% Loud, 35 Pain, 35 Cade. I don't really trust Red.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the meme for Loud when they come back was what? Oh, Koisa Room Photo? So what's the meme for when they don't come back now?
We'll need a new one. I'm sure the internet will grace us with something good.
Yeah, that's it. It does feel a little different now. Obviously, like in previous splits, even when Loud didn't look great, I think the rest of the field never felt as good as it does this split.
Yeah.
with VKS
Yeah,
and Pain
100%,
and Red and Furia all being like, wow, these guys are actually kind of cooking right now. Whereas before there was like Pain was always good, but they didn't seem as dominant. There are times when they were as dominant in a couple of splits ago where they'd have like a 14-4 split or something. And we're like, wow, this pain rules. But it was without like always keeping the kind of but it's loud versus Pain in the back of your head.
Yeah,
So
there was that mental block.
Pain's
right?
always good, but we don't know if Pain's ever going to get over this kind of thing or if they've gotten over it yet.
Yeah.
And like Red was sussier than before. VKS was either not existent at all or not to the level that it's gotten to now. So like there was always just like less of a field. The field never deserved as much respect, I think, as it does this split. Even when Loud still had times coming into playoffs where they looked like just silly. And once they had that Furia series, I was like, okay, there is still the Loud factor here, but this is against the 5th seed who did not look like themselves, and they almost 3-0'd them anyway. And then the Pain match, it's like, nah, this has got to be different now. Something has got to be different. And I think now, I don't think there's a realistic chance that Loud win the split, honestly. I'm very quick to discount Loud every split because I want it to be true mainly. But like, I think that I would still predict Loud, a lot of the times in previous splits. But now I'm not predicting Loud again ever in this. I'm not predicting them. I'm not going to predict them against Furia if we did it. You know what I mean? That's a very close one. That's like probably like a 55-45 kind of prediction to me, honestly. But I'm not going to predict them against Furia. I wouldn't predict them versus anyone else left in the playoffs right now, given how they've played. I just don't think there's like a reason grounded in reality and physical things that we can say to do that. It's all Loud magic, and the Loud magic is still missing somewhat.
Understandable. Do we want to get into Loud Furia now, since we've covered both the teams, or at the end?
We can maybe just jump into that now because we've kind of teed it up, and then
Okay.
Red VKS I think can have its own needs a concerted reset slot for it, because that was a very interesting series that
Yeah.
is a separate beast, I think, to the whole Loud Pain dynamic as well right now. So for Loud Furia, it doesn't seem like Furia has solved their draft issues to me. I still don't think they know quite how they want to play and how they want to draft. They don't know what consistently works for them anymore, which is a problem. I joked before about Loud just showing up and going Talia Sedge every single game again, and then beating them and then beating them. Now, I honestly think that Wiz, who started playing Sejuani more after that series, Influx, who started picking Sejuani again, they will contest it and they won't just let it go over. I think you probably can leave the Talia, honestly, but I think that Furia are not immune to mental damage and psychological warfare, so there could be, if anyone's going to get Loud magicked, it's these guys who have looked the most exploitable, I think, in that regard so far.
Well, and they already got Loud magicked. You wonder how mentally they
literally
recovered
did.
from
They're
getting
reverse
reverse
sweep
swept.
ever.
Yes, they have been a victim of the Loud magic already, so that's going to be about them getting in their own heads or not. About the young players, about, I don't know if how the coaches are going to deal with that, how you approach dealing with that problem. It's obviously a very tricky one. It's very soft skills. It's very qualitative. It's not something you can just be like, actually, you should have passed here kind of problem, So it's tricky to fix in a week as well. So
Yeah. The biggest problem, I'm still favoring Loud on this one. As much as I like what I've seen from Furia, as much as I think they've been a great macro team, we're already starting to see Loud work their playoff magic a little bit. Like, as much as we criticize them in that series against Pain, they are still looking better than they did in the regular season, which take with that what you will. But for Furia, my biggest issue is that they are not looking more comfortable best of 5. They keep going 5 games. And if you go 5 games against Loud, that's when I start sweating, because that team knows how to clutch it out. When you go full 5, that's their comfort zone. Like the further in you go, the more games they play, the better they are. So for Furia, like, you kind of got to go blitzing, and I'm not seeing the blitz from this team right now. So
I don't know if I'd predict in game 5, the amount of teams I would predict over Loud goes down significantly. I just don't think that many teams left. I don't think Pain and VKS would let them get there. Red might, and then that would be a toss up, to be honest, that I don't know if Red's able to do. But it's So for Loud, you kind of mentioned earlier, RMC, that like with the Sejuani Talia thing, that you think that might still be like a viable strategy for them. Like, one, do you think that's going to be possible, that they're going to be allowed to go back to it a lot? And two, why do you think that's still going to be like a winning formula for Loud against Furia?
Well, it was more like Croc's Ball I was looking at, because I think the whole Talia thing, Tinons has enough other champions. Like, they just need to stop trying to force him to play AD carries or marksman or smolders, you know. Yeah, well, actually, I think his Aurora's fine. I think there is some interesting synergies.
Okay.
Yeah, like Aurora MF has actually some interesting synergies as well, right? Because they're locks them all in. If MF is far away enough, she covers majority of that circle. So I actually don't hate that. I think the Aurora is fine. But if anything, I'm just thinking it's more Croc's Shampoo. It's the Sejuani you need to take away, the Maokai you need to take away. And if he's going to go Nocturne, if Tinon's willing to go Ahri, we're golden. And that's why like I'm worried that Furia can't pinch quite the same way. And Wiz has not looked amazing on Maokai. Like, I think Wiz looks best in champions like Lee Sin, where you can, or like even the Nidalee, where you can aggressively get in your opponent's face, you know, control the tempo of the game. Maokai controls tempo by slowing it down, not by speeding it up. His Sejuani is fine. Right? I'm not saying it's bad, but Wiz, if you're forcing him on those sort of champions, then I fear Furia loses tempo, and Loud is a slow tempo team. They're the ones who, if you scale up, then they start to carry. Tin owns consistently, you know, if he gets his hands on Corki, heck, even that Smolder, the Aurora, like he starts carrying games at the 25-30 minute mark. So you need to have a big enough lead to shut him out. Yeah. So Furia, pick your poison.
If we're talking about problems with champ pool, can we talk about Tuts a little bit? Because we had the Ahri that worked, and then off it seemed to be a massive drop off. But he wasn't relying on the Ahri massively before. I don't think he even played it that much in the regular season. The Hui came out and was just still solid in lane, but didn't seem to matter as much. But we were seeing other things, I feel like, from Tuts before. Yeah. And we just didn't see that flexibility in the mid lane position before. Like, we didn't see the Jace. It was banned once, but not more than once, I don't think. And like, we didn't see more flexibility out of Tuts. And I kind of wish that we would, especially if Tinons is willing to play Smolder. Like, we can't let that be exploitable and let Tinons get away with something like that if you're Furia, by not being willing to pick something that punishes it properly. So I'm a little worried about that, but I feel like Tuts can do it. I just feel like they're making the choice not to do it almost, which is just confusing me a little.
100%. He's played 13 unique champions in the mid lane throughout the split. Like, that's a lot for a mid laner. Yeah. And he was the guy who pioneered Jhin mid in CB LoL. And if I recall correctly, he said he was also playing Draven mid in solo queue for fun at the time.
Yeah, I mean, if you can do Jhin, you can play Draven as well. Like,
that's fine. Basically, the marksmen are his domain. He pulled the Varus mid out too.
Yeah, just run fast and hit hard. It's fairly simple.
So with Tuts to a very large extent, I'm not worried about his champ pool in terms of him as a player. Now, what the team wants him to do is the big question mark, which I think is like what we're looking at here, Trajan, with that question. So. Yeah, I'm curious. I don't think he should struggle in lane against Tinons necessarily. It's more just what does his team want him to do. Yeah.
And what they choose to do with top lane as well. Because we haven't seen those Robo games.
That's a bigger question for me.
So, like, ZZK and Robo look the best on very similar champions, on Renekton's and Jax's and things. We don't really see as much variety out of Robo. We don't see Cannons or even Rumbles, really. I feel like we barely see anything out of Robo these days. We don't see, which is like one of his 3 classic Robo champs mostly. But I know we know ZZK does have a bit more variety in there in terms of AP carries and AD, but he does not looking better. And that's just a lane where I'm like, I don't know. I'd probably favor Robo in it at this point, because I'm not happy with what I've seen from ZZK so far. But it could literally it's just a toss up there, which is worrying for Furia.
Actually, I was just double checking. Robo played 14 unique champs he has a lot where he just did like a one and done, right? Like, he played Sion, he played Ornn, he played Twisted Fate, he played Rumble, Cassante, Yone, Poppy. All of those he only played once.
Sure.
But more recently, I fully agree with you, Trajan. I think like in terms of effective champions he can carry on, it somehow feels less than what ZZK has pulled out. And ZZK hasn't shown us a ton either.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like, this top side is kind of where I'm looking at for both these teams. One of them needs to step up.
I
can't remember if it was you,
but
I can't remember, Trajan, if it was you or before who said earlier that like talking about ZZK, right? Like, look at who's left, right? It's Gigo, Weiser, FNB, Robo. Robo's the weakest right now, but he's
and he's Robo,
the most successful player, not just top laner, player in all of friggin' CB LoL right now.
Yeah, he's
You've got
arguably
Gigon.
the GOAT, you know what I mean? Like,
yep.
And he's the worst.
Yeah, and then you've got Weiser, who's on
worst
fire
one.
right now. FNB, who's like the best top laner in the league currently.
Yeah.
Like ZZK, you've got it rough, and you need to start stepping up. Like, yeah, I'm looking at this top side, and even in the situation Loud is in, I still think Robo's got this. ZZK needs to show me something
I
more.
think he does.
Yeah, I'd take Loud in this series. Might be 3-1 or 3-2. It might not be pretty, but I think they just have a little something extra. I just don't think they're going to let themselves get knocked out in consecutive series like that. I have to trust they're going to make some sort of adaptation.
Yeah.
But again, yeah, like the top lane, I have no idea what to expect. Honestly, it's gonna be very interesting.
Yeah,
but again, I'm hoping to see some more characteristic drafts from Loud, because the meta is actually in a pretty decently open place right now. Now that they've reverted the Tristana madness, and you're not completely tied into AP junglers. Yeah, again, it's exploitable, but I don't think they.
Yeah, I think the best path for Furia is to try and get an AP strong laner, top lane for ZZK, get a Rumble, get a Kennen, and remember the ADs for Tuts mid. Remember that you can play Jace, you can play Corki, you can play like bullies, Dravens, you can play things that are going to sway this matchup for you, that then keep your damage balance nice and even across top and mid. And then for bot lane, so the Ezreal, like, we know that the Ezreal isn't, like, the MF isn't a problem for Ezreal as a champion. We've seen too much evidence to the contrary at this point. So IU was not able to get much of a foothold here, and maybe it's just that IU's not quite there yet, where Root is just too good right now, and IU's not quite developed to the point where he's able to contest in the same way that Titan can, the same way that Smiley can, which is weird to say, because Smiley is, like, about as experienced in this region, less experienced in this region than IU is, but not like not less experienced as a player. He's been playing pro for many years. So I want more for IU. I don't know if we're there yet. I feel like we might still just be like, maybe we're a year away. Maybe we've got IU back on track with JoJo and good coaching stuff. Maybe we still need to like let him take another step up, or if there's an answer to actually get him ahead of Root consistently right now.
I'm okay with IU where he is. If anything, I'm looking at JoJo. Braum. Just pick the Braum.
Yeah, it's not a traditional JoJo pick, but I think he has to just set that aside and pick the champ, because it's very good. And like some of the most, it's seeing the Braum was creeping back in even before the MF was happening, and it was like some of the most impactful support play that we'd seen in this split and across multiple regions as well was the Braums coming in and being massive and being able to be aggressive and still like showing the huge defensive capacity it has. Braum is sick, and everyone should be having the ability to play it at this stage, especially now that MF has just randomly decided to join the meta. Like,
what's hilarious to me too is that he actually played it against Loud in the regular season, the second round robin.
And they won.
Against it was Ezreal Leona. Yeah, and they won. So it's like JoJo can play the champ. It's not like he's incapable of it.
Do it, brother.
Yeah, Fierce is doing weird things in draft I don't understand.
yeah. Because if you do that, do we have to give engaged duties to ZZK? Do we have to give him Ornn again, and then he gets diced up by Robo and Exon? I don't know if we want to do that. So there's trade-offs to be made here that I think mainly the top side is the problem, but like, yeah, Furia needs to work out what their strategy is in the draft and then try and stick to it and have at least one backup, please. Because if they manage to solve your first idea, we can't have another repeat of the reverse. That's too painful. But I think perfectly reasonable to favor Loud. I'm favoring Furia, like I say, 55-45, about as thin of a margin as one can reasonably make it. I just feel like Loud is also in that Pain series. They are like the smolder mid into the Auroras with the Poppy jungles coming in, and like I think the only one that knows what they want to do right now is Root, and he wants to play MF, and he's good. He's good with that. So I think that Loud have a potential to look less stable in the draft if Furia deny them what worked before and stop them being able to play the same thing 5 games in a row and just be like, no, you have to come up with a new idea now, not just us. Yeah. So who knows? It'll be a fun series. I hope it is a fun series, because we've seen we got into a good place now, in this latter round. It was good fun. And with that, speaking of fun series, let's talk about Red and VKS.
Oh yeah.
on the other side, like a completely different ballpark, without all of the baggage of the Pain Loud history, without the lower bracket shenanigans, without the reverse sweeps from Furia, any of this. They just rocked up, and we expected a banger series here. Now, I expected it to be a little less one-sided than I think it was. Overall, I think VKS looked a lot noticeably better than Red, and more so than I would have guessed.
Yeah, like I think one thing, RMC, like you were saying about Pain in that Loud series, which I didn't feel as much the case, but I think I know where you're coming from. Was that you said you felt like Pain was in control the entire time?
Yep.
Especially in game one, even in game two, where Red kind of got out to a little bit of a lead and then and then bungled it, which was well, not a little bit. I actually got out to a pretty sizable lead and then bungled it. Red's Cade, Cade just felt more in control. They got every single dragon. They split. You know, when Red did one thing, they answered back. It just felt very like, okay, you get an advantage in a lane. You use that to get something on the map. You get an advantage on the other side. You use that to get something on the map, and just kind of methodically went forward, snowballed their leads very nicely. Again, game two, I think is you have to give a lot of credit to Cade, but you have to give Red their Oh, there we go. Sorry, my Discord has been weird. Sorry, disconnected there for a bit. But yeah, I give immense credit to Cade. They looked unflappable. They looked very good.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why I'm so excited for the Cade Pay matchup, because both of them look incredible right now. And I said before we actually went live that I look at this Red roster and I go, they would have either won the split or come in second, I think, in any other split in CBLOL history. But this split, they run up into the one split where Cade and Pain are both absolutely looking incredibly dominant, looking utterly immaculate. And the fact that Red actually takes a game off Cade Stars, to me, is props to them. They are the most Brazilian team winning the most Brazilian way in the last Brazilian split. And it's just, I'm kind of really sad that it had to be this split where Red looks this good.
Yeah, I think this could have been the chance for FNB to play it international.
Yeah.
But whoops, unfortunately, it's the most stacked playoffs of all time in the region. Sorry, buddy. And like, they arguably, they came very close to winning 2 games. The game 2, notwithstanding. But it did feel like, Red comes away in the first couple of acts of each game. When you look at individual moments, Red is coming away winning more moments than VKS is, but the gold lead just never really grows that much. And you're like, okay, this is what it feels like when a scrappy, dynamic, worse team plays a more controlled, better team. Is they normally get a couple of picks, eke out a little bit of a lead, get the first couple of towers, they get some extra kills, but they never really get control of the map. They never really take control of the game. And then at some point, the game just kind of slips away from them. And that's just kind of what happened. So it did maybe feel like, hey, this is VKS being on another level today. Like, they're just operating on that. They've got the kind of best of both worlds, I think, right now. For they have some early split VKS control and some late VKS style points. Smiley, of course, was the most out of his chair I've seen anyone be on CPLOL. He was out of his chair and across the room. He was like practically jumping over the red desks at one point to tell them, or like jumping into the fans to give him the business. And I was like, wow, he's accelerating.
He's on full Brazil, man.
He's accelerated past a lot of the Brazilian players now, and how, in terms of how physically far he is willing to go to make a point.
I absolutely love it though. Like, and he even tweeted on Twitter too, right? Like, he's not doing this out of like temper or anything. He's just embracing the moment. He's living it up. And I love it. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, this is the stand-in AD carry, the shoe filler until Mortius is trained up, the ERL tier hasn't done major tournament before, Swedish rando that was just kind of like, well, Smiley's here for a while, I guess, so that helps CL bed in with a different region because he's brought some European flavor. But like, that's just, Smiley is just crushing it right now.
Yes,
and
100%.
it's so cool. It's so cool. And he's also leading the MF charge, which is hilarious, and like just getting so many great games on it and showing exactly how to make the best use out of this pick, what happens when your team is ready to set you up properly, when your positioning is that good. Like, man, He is just a joy. He's a joy to watch right now.
And the disgusting thing, and the reason why I have him like at the top in terms of FF, is he's doing it without setup.
Yeah.
His comms aren't drafting AoE CC for him. He's just positioning better and making sure that he uses it out appropriately. It's not always just to kill people in team fights. He's using it well to zone. He's using it well to wave clear. He's using it well to set up. Watching Smalley right now in Brazil, this is the gold standard for Misfortune in Brazil. Brunsey tried it against him game 1. It did not work. Brunsey didn't quite get the hang of the Misfortune. And Brunsey lived through the Misfortune meta back when Red was winning. When he was back on Loud Party Podcast. That was still MF meta back then.
That was literally MF Amumu double kill into Fnatic.
Yeah.
That was the bot gap play.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I love the fact that Smalley's doing incredibly well. If we're talking about Red, though, I do want to highlight, Kate Stars. I do want to highlight Leleco as well, because I think Leleco has been, to me, the weakest link in this roster of 5.
Yeah.
But this series in particular, his marksman play was absolutely on point. And if he plays like this against Pain, I don't think Dinkido is that big a lead anymore in the mid lane. Dinkido is playing the best game, the best league in his life. But Leleco on marksman is starting to get up there. I think Ezreal is going to be a very contested pick between Leleco and Titan.
Yeah, just multiple lanes across, multiple stages. I think that's one thing we've not really seen much out of Smiley as the Ezreal. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we see him play it a lot. If a couple of times, I think, but I don't feel like it's high prio for... You'd much rather take Ashe or MF now, I suppose. I think he has played it a couple of times, but I don't remember
3 games. Yeah,
3. Okay, so maybe more than I remember. But
well, considering he played Ashe 4 straight games at the beginning of a split and then got a permaban, then he took Jhin away from Trigo and started giving nightmares to Fluxu, and then he's been on the MF cake ever since then. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah, understandable that we don't remember the Ezreal.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's very high value across multiple lanes, multiple teams. The Ezreal is now just a great early flex to lock in somewhere. And I think the other part of bot lane, looking at this series as well, has reminded me, kind of from the Pain Lab one as well, is that Alistar has just become the best support in the game again. Brom is over here, but Alistar as well needs to be in the conversation. And the season 1 ass champ that Alistar is.
What Pro Delta did in that game 1, that dive,
dude,
single-handedly, essentially winning the game for Cade in
every button he presses is solving a different problem.
No, literally, no. He was playing Dance Dance Revolution. He was playing Beat Saber. He was out there for the one headbutt onto one member, and then 2 members try to come up. They're a level down. Everyone on red is level 3. He and Smiley are level 2, right? And then 2 members kind of come up, but they're on either side of the tower. He just pulverized down, gets them both knocked up. And I heard whoever was on color comms on the Brazilian broadcast was just, once that pulverize went off, he goes, "Oh my god." Once that went off, I was like, "Oh my god, they're all gonna die." Yeah. And sure enough, that's what happened.
Yeah, fair enough. It's objectively, Braum is the best support right now. Subjectively, when it's Pain versus Kate Stars, Alistar. Because Curry's had moments too. Yeah, where he just runs behind a turret like a turret's not even there on the Alistar. It's turret, what turret? Can't milk these. And just finds the engage. They just don't care. They make it look so busted. And I love the fact too that it's Prods and Curry of all people. Because a year ago, Prods got Pain right up to the grand finals.
Yeah.
And now he gets to go up against his former team in, not grand finals yet, winners finals. But if all goes according to what we've seen so far, it's likely it'll also be grand finals.
Yeah. They look like the top 2 pretty definitively right now. We also saw Shyvana jungle twice for Desamis.
Yep.
Ripping out the Shojin Liandry's build for Spice. 1 win, 1 loss. The first win being that comeback game where VKS got there after a lengthy stint, and then the second one it did not win. So it wasn't a hugely dominant pick necessarily, and I think Red didn't start banning it. VKS didn't keep picking it. It didn't look amazing, but he certainly picked it twice, and they won one of the games. So cool, I guess.
To be fair to Samus, I feel like there's something wrong with Gigo and Desamis when he picks the Shyvana there, because there's a couple of times where Gigo went in before Desamis was quite ready for the topside dive. And then he
broke his press R, and he's like, "I can't, mate. I can't press R. It doesn't do anything. What do you want me to do?"
Yeah, it was kind of weird because I felt like Gigo in those 2 games actually kind of tossed the top lane, the laning specifically, a little bit. And normally with the Shyvana, you do want to go for that 2v1 dive in the top side. At level 6, when you get the dragon form, you can do so much burst damage. So you just kind of trade heavily, half health, go for the dive. That's the ideal. Didn't quite work out. I thought the Samus's half of it was fine. Like, he wasn't the problem side. That was Gringos. So I don't know if that's like a comms thing, a practice thing that they need to work on a little bit more. Again, not the biggest carry for the Samus, but I don't hate him having the tool in the pocket. And if they can figure that out, I do think Shyvana is pretty strong in the current 12.15 patch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For Red, going down to losers bracket, they lost. They ended their 11-game win streak. I think they were on by the end. So I think that the most impactful way that I'd heard it phrased was it had been like 5 weeks since they'd lost a stage game or something. Been over a month since they lost a stage game, which is crazy to think about. But they did look decidedly somewhat outclassed here. When they had the leads, they still kind of got outscaled and taken down. They weren't able to really blow games open that much. Even their win in game 3 wasn't super definitive. There was very, very close run thing for a lot of the time. So how do we feel about Red as a team? Now that they've finally been stalled for the first time in 5 weeks, going into losers bracket, waiting on the winner of Loud Furia, what do we think about the chances? Because you've already mentioned RMC, you think that in many other splits they'd come first or second, but in this split right now, what do you think is their position?
I think they're really good. They don't need to change. Don't change the mindset. That's for sure. The only thing I think they need to change is they need to figure out what happens when Lilia is banned. Because I've been screaming about this for weeks. Ban the Lilia. It's not... Okay, so it's kind of weird because it's not Aegis' problem. Aegis can actually play support or utility picks incredibly well. Like his Sejuani's, his Maokai's, his Ivern as well was absolutely spot on. Amazing play from the Ivern that game. But it's actually Greptar who suffers when Aegis can't get Lilia. Because then suddenly Greptar can't just go support a pick anymore. He actually has to pick carries like Yone because you don't have Lilia carry. So they need to kind of fix whatever's going on with Greptar when Lilia's disabled or banned out. If they can fix that, it covers their weaknesses. And if they just play the way they have been playing, this sort of aggressive style, F&B carry, Aegis supportive utility, they're going to be golden. And I do also want to shout Coelho, their coach, or... Is he? Yeah, he is the coach.
He's the sole coach, I believe, on the staff right now.
Yeah.
So...
Because I thought their drops actually this series were really on point, even though it didn't quite execute properly, especially game 4. Greptar's Yone was just invisible. I really like their use of Aphelios, who's not meta right now.
Yeah.
But they're picking it in good positions with the right sets of drops to try and enable it. I think I'm really liking what Rid's bringing to the table, which I find highly ironic that you have to fire your coaching staff to get better at the metagame.
Yeah. I said before this series, before playoffs, or after that Fluxus series, I think this is going to give Red the idea that Grevthar's got a Yone. And I just don't think he does.
Yeah, so there's false data. We talked
I
about
just don't
this,
think he does. And they picked it twice in this series, lost both times. And as you say, game 4 particularly, just stop, man, or just give it to FNB. It's not going to work. Now, okay, playoffs, you beat Fluxu, you had a great time, that was pretty funny. Okay, put the Grevthar Yone away, man, get the Scion back out, okay? Like, it's not
You know what? Grevthar was born before 2000, so by the 4x4 metric, just give him Oriana, man.
Oriana, yeah, do some Nocturne Ori action. Why not, man?
Generally.
Yeah, I actually quite liked his Hui during the split. He's got a mage in there somewhere, we know he does.
These guys got the Hui.
True.
I think the Ari had its moments for him as well. It was like not that bad. So like, just not Yone, please. That's my only real.
But Yone's so strong in the meta.
Cool. Love that for Yone players, of which Grevthar is not. I'm afraid. No matter how many times he picks it, we're not there yet. Okay, it's not the dynamic that you need for the mid lane, because it's not going to get you what Yone is supposed to get you in the game. It's not going to play out how the draft is supposed to play out. With an Ivern Yone, like, let's not put Grevthar in the driver's seat of that duo. Okay, let's keep Aegis in control. He's the coach of the team, actually, as we know. So there's 2 coaches, Aegis and Coelho. So I don't know, man. That's the one thing as well. I was just like, yeah, I do like their drafts. I love they've still got flexibility for karaoke. Vi, Ivern, Maokai, Zyra across 4 games. Great range showed there. FNB is still showing great range, great laning. He's still having a great split. You know, Brunsey and Frosty are really really gelling more, and they've got the Ophelos, love that. All of these are positives. I'm like, we'd really started to get consistent value out of Grevthar in the last few weeks by not doing stuff like this. And can we just...
I mean, his Talia game was still good, right? Like, you pick Talia, he's fine on it. He's great. So there are still lots of champions. Like,
you can give him a champ that does damage. That's fine. But just not Yone, specifically. It's not even like archetypes. Just not the Yone, man.
Yeah.
Not the only man. So we'll see if that's a lesson that they learn against either Tuts or Tinones in that round. But I'm not sure about that. But yeah, I think Red's still very excited. I'm glad to see them still showing something, but they definitely, the shine came off a little bit. And Pain and VKS, I think, just continued to roll on. So we've talked about Loud Furia. Do we want to touch a little bit on VKS Pain?
Yes.
As a matchup here.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because that one, like I said, I'm predicting that to be the grand finals again.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go 5 series. Because the last time these two teams met up in the regular season,
it was
what a game that was!
Banger.
I want 5 of those.
Yeah.
And again, I would have predicted Pain to be the better team going into this one. But with the way Leleko stepped up against Red, my goodness, he's not a weak spot anymore. So it's going to be absolutely epic. If anything, I'm a little bit worried for Gigo because he didn't look like he was completely on form in the Red Cannon series, but Weiser looked like he was absolutely crushing Robo up top. They're freed of all their demons. Just every single matchup is going to be absolutely epic. And this bot lane right now, I think Smalley, Pro Delta, Titan Curry, these are the 4 best players in the league right now. And so that bot lane, absolutely epic. I love it. I love it. I think a lot of it's going to be decided on picks, on literally who gets the Ezreal, who gets the Braum. Whether or not Smalley's Jhin gets to pop off again, like he did in that series, in that game against Spain. It's just going to be absolutely epic. I'm going to lose my mind on it. I just hope. I want 5 games. I want 10 games of this. Give me both the best 5s.
I want the bot lanes to pick for both teams to gentlemen no bot lane bans. And whenever they pick a matchup, the next game they play the same matchup reversed, and we just have
no MF. I don't want to see MF coming through for Titan.
We just have a little exhibition of bot lane matchups where every time they have to pick a matchup, they have to then play the reverse matchup the next game to see who's actually better at it.
I'll be down for that.
So that is going to be. I mean, it's probably going to be like MF Alistair versus Ezreal Braum every single game. So prepare yourself for that. But we'll see if Titan needs to reach into the bag of tricks or even wants to. We'll see if Smiley wants to go back to the Ashe or pull out the Jhin, as we saw into the MF in game 1 versus Red that worked pretty well. So both of them have the options, and we'll see what the approach to bot lane is. For sure, is going to be very, very close. Leleko, Dinkedo, where potentially giving the Corki is not an instant death sentence for VKS will be interesting. It could just be an instant death sentence, though, let's be honest, because this is Dinkedo's Corki.
Yeah, Dinkedo's spamming it. He has 9 games of Corki this split.
Yeah, so I kind of don't think VKS should play around with giving it to him. I think you should threaten the first pick or ban it. I don't think you open that door. Leleko did look a lot better versus Red, but this Dinkedo Corki, man, I don't think anyone holds a candle to it right now.
No.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Yeah.
Again, like the top side's the one I'm a little bit worried about. I want to see like whether we get Gigod, because I remember back when Red won CB LOL, it was against Pain, and it was Gigod dumpstering Weiser.
Yeah.
If that didn't happen, Red wouldn't have won. So now that he's on Cade Stars once again going up against Weiser, like this will be a bit of an interesting throwback when Gigod's not been he hasn't looked like Gigod recently.
Gigod Aurelia, bring it back just in time to throw Weiser for a loop. I think he would get absolutely owned if he picked Aurelia, to be clear. But yeah, that's Gigod. I think is just like sometimes he'll come and have a less good day. Sometimes he'll have a great day. He's just like a minor version of that kind of volatility scale. But it's generally going to be a very, very interesting matchup, and I do hope we get 5 games of all of their regular season matchups, which were just crazy. And this
man. It just feels like they're getting better too. Okay, I keep going back. These two teams, man, they're just the best right now, and both of them feel like they're improving in playoffs too. Like Payne versus Loud was the cleanest we've seen Payne play all split, and they're already incredibly dominant. And the Kate Stars versus Red series as well. The fact that even when Red was winning, and we've seen Red snowball games, I don't think any of us were like, "Oh, Kate Stars is like it's done, it's dusted." It was always just in the back of our heads, like, "Yeah, Red's winning now," but
Jay never had that full faith in them.
Yeah, exactly. So, like it does feel like Kate Stars, it feels like, okay, most of the split, I've said Kate Stars has not been the cleanest version of themselves we've seen. I thought Fury was playing a better macro game. But right now it feels like we've still got the firepower of the split where individually they're some of the best players, like top 3 in across the board pretty much. Plus they're getting back some of that cleanness and macro from last split. So the two combining at the right time right now, as they're peaking, as we're coming to the end of playoffs. Like I strongly believe we're going to see the teams evolve mid-series between Payne and Kate Stars because it feels like they're egging each other on. It's that whole like rivalry thing going that Payne and Loud had their rivalry, but let's be honest, Loud was stomping down in Payne for most of it.
Yeah,
this time it really does feel like neck and neck, and they're going to be. It's who improves faster through these games, through these series.
Who would you take 4-4 in this matchup?
I'd take Payne. I think they are more battle tested. I think they've just been through more. I'm glad that Cade would still have the lower bracket, right? Because I think it would be really unjust if they got knocked out like this. But yeah, I think they're more battle tested. I think they're, if you go kind of across, I'm trying to think here, lane by lane, I think I would take everyone on Payne over everyone on Cade. Is that crazy? Except maybe Pro Delta Curry.
Yeah, that was the only one that's the bot lane. I was kind of like, I don't know about the bot lane, but everywhere else,
it's perfectly reasonable to take either side. Really, it's like
yeah.
I mean, I think I'd take Wiser. I'd take Karaoke. I'd take Dinkado. Yeah, like breaking it down, it does feel like a marginal but clear Payne sweep in terms of like who's going to win, who's better. But something about it makes me kind of feel like VKS is going to win. I don't really know why. I just kind of feel it. Yeah, maybe it is. Like, maybe it's a scouting thing. We haven't seen Payne properly challenged yet in this playoffs, because Loud certainly didn't offer much of a challenge after the first, like, half of the game. They were alive and they were kicking in the first half of the games, but when it came down to brass tacks, they crumbled at the important moments. But VKS isn't going to do that. I just don't believe they're going to do that. And I don't think they're going to.
Loud was alive. Kicking feels a bit of a stretch.
They were kicking.
Robo was kicking on the Yone, and like they were
twitching.
They were hurling themselves into the game. Like when they found some of those catches, like if they'd banned Prom, would have been great. If they weren't 7,000 goal behind or whatever, would have been great. Like they were able to create plays, but the circumstances surrounding the play was not appropriate and did not result in success. So like they were kicking, but like in the same way that like babies kick in their cribs, like no one's getting hurt, but like they're still
except the baby,
they're still flailing about. So like so yeah, I something this, it's entirely just gut feeling that thinks VKS might take it. But if you look into it, like say lane by lane, individual by individual, factor by factor, I think Payne comes ahead on many of them. So yeah. I'll take VKS just because there's such a good that it can so easily go either way in so many factors, but that's just the nature of this matchup. It's basically impossible to call.
100%.
Yeah, and then Loud Furia we've covered, and we'll see how Red deals with them later. So with that, shall we do a couple of questions before we wrap it up?
Get into it.
We have a couple of podcast questions here. Luna Day, of course, the usual. She's come in here with, am I the only one who does not like this form of bracket in playoffs? I feel like losing should not be rewarded in playoffs, and Red getting a bye for losing doesn't sit well with me, especially coming from best of one season. It doesn't translate to best of fives. Now, I don't think this is a true and fair representation of what the bracket is. Red has received a bye for being higher seeded than Loud, is why they've received a bye. Which I think Red also have looked like a better team than Loud. And if I had to just order them by my own headcanon, I'd put them deeper in the bracket myself as well. Now, the argument is that if you look at the best example is usually in fighting games, where the loser's bracket is also, it's basically a mirror of the winner's bracket. It's just that it starts one round later. So like there's the current loser's bracket here is a single string. It's basically a gauntlet that goes up loser's bracket. Whereas in theory, you can do, like if you had a top 8, you can do 2 matches in winners, 2 matches in losers, and then you have the full bracket. Everyone is sort of even in theory in that way. So I don't know if you can efficiently do that with 6 teams. Ultimately, you just don't have enough teams, I think, to run like the full top of tree unless you maybe start some teams in losers bracket. Like if you have only the top 4 up here or top 2 up here and 4. I don't know. I don't think you can efficiently run it without someone getting ordered in a gauntlet style for top 6 very well.
Yeah. Agreed. And it's worth noting as well, Lunar actually had an example bracket that she'd recommend, but unfortunately it's not public. Like it was privated, so you couldn't see it.
Information,
So sorry, Lunar. Like, yeah, but I'm kind of frustrated for this. I just can't think of a better format right now, in terms of how we want to do it. And just because I don't think Red is being rewarded for losing.
No. Yeah.
Because it's not like Loud or Fury
finishing higher in the regular season.
Yeah. And on top of that, it's not like Loud or Fury won. If Loud or Fury won and then had to face Red, who lost, okay, then it's like, you're that is unfairly rewarding Red. But Loud and Fury both lost at some point to find themselves in the lower bracket. And again, there was a tiebreaker. There would have been. In this case, Red was clearly above Loud.
Yeah.
But in the regular season, even if they were tied, they have a tiebreaker. And if you don't want to get knocked down earlier, just win.
Yeah, they've been rewarded for seeding higher than Loud in the context of the lower bracket. They've not been rewarded for losing. But they achieved enough in the regular season to grant them an extra advantage here in the event that they lose. I think is a better way to think about it. So, I don't think there's a more efficient way of doing it really with 6 teams. You'd need 8 teams, I think, to do a full top and bottom bracket realistically.
But if there was, I'd be open to seeing it. Like I kind of see where you're coming from. Like ideally, that'd be a more fair way. I just can't. I can't imagine one.
And we're going down to 8 teams, and you can't have every team in playoffs because then playoffs doesn't really mean that much. I think.
Why not? We can. I can't get all 12 teams in playoff last split, and that was glorious.
Yeah,
but it was glorious.
It was something.
It kind of wasn't though. Like it was glorious in the sense that you got like some really ass matchups at the bottom of the bracket. INTZ still got their ish kicked in. Like, and the good teams won in the end. It didn't change.
I think it's not worth the loss in extra scheduling time of having every single team then involved and having to add more and more best of fives. It really depends on what the structure of the season is going to be going forward in terms of how many tournaments they have when they're scheduling this thing. But I don't know. I think that it's nice where you earn the right to compete for the championship, as it were, in the regular season, and it's like it's almost like winning the first stage of the competition is making playoffs, and then if you don't win that, then you don't get a chance to play in the second competition to win it. I don't know. I like it the way it is. I'm not gonna like scream and cry if they added all 8 teams to playoffs, but I do like there being like an element of you need to qualify and need to be worthy of qualifying to it. But you could just do it with 8 teams. So the second question from Mickey is, out of the current playoff teams, which one do you think should win, in quotes? That is, which one has the highest likelihood of making it out of play-ins at Worlds and learning the most from the international camp? So which team is the one that we think would represent us best on the international stage and be the most, absorb the most information, bring it back, everyone gets better, general overall net good for everybody?
Okay.
Not Loud. That's for gosh darn sure.
Yes,
we tried that too many
100%.
times, and they didn't learn anything, I think is fair to say, at this stage. I don't think they've changed as a team at all since going.
Well, they learned who Croc's father was, so
they did. They got the test done while they were out there.
Was it Junja's son or whatever his IGN was? It.
Yeah.
Well, though it should be Levi's son by this point, honestly.
They're co-parents. You know, it's a very progressive scene. Like they're co-parenting Croc, unfortunately, but he's going off to the military, so they will be bereft. I think if we talk about the ones that we think are most likely to be there already, which is Pain BKS, I think fairly conclusively. We know that VKS has a world-traveled coaching staff who is willing to incorporate elements from other regions, styles, players, etc. I think that is more or less proven, and we know that he's done a lot with not as much. He's done a lot with a roster that is not all big names and not that much time. He's managed to achieve a lot. So one international kind of like experience, I think we know for sure, or can be confident that CL and VKS would get a lot out of it. Now, how do you feel about Pain, basically, and their backroom staff, and like how they as a team org would engage with the international process, given it's been a fair few years since they were there before?
I don't know. I'm thinking about this in terms of narratives, almost. Like, if you could guarantee me that Cade could keep everything together and run it back next year, then I would say Cade. In terms of narrative, just like if it's like a one shot, that scene in Attack on Titan where Erwin rallies all the troops and essentially sends them all to their doom. Right, you are sending Pain into the fires of Riot's downsizing for one last. It's got to be Pain.
Yeah,
that's my narrative. Yeah, exactly. Send Titan back. Send Dinketo with another title.
Yeah.
I think that is more fun.
Yeah,
I didn't really answer your question there,
more fun. And I think they both have a good chance to make waves and do decently in play-ins. Right now, so I couldn't really split between the both of them as to which is more likely to perform better necessarily. But I do think One and Done Pain is a cooler narrative because they've been there before. Some of the players have been there before, and they're it's been so long. They're finally back. The entire landscape is different. The team is different, but they're ready to get us back on track, I guess, after the Loud Dynasty.
Yeah, I think it's really tough. In a way, it's a good sort of tough. It's like a first world problem that we've got multiple teams who would all do incredibly well, I think. I think Cade and Pain would both kind of have equal chances of making out of play-ins. I think whoever wins the grand finals would probably be the best representation between VKS and Pain. If Loud somehow make it and win it again, oh my goodness, just shoot me now. But in terms of learning most from the international camp, I think KTS will learn a lot. We've seen CL be very good at picking things up and teaching the players, and the players pick up stuff fast.
Yeah.
But for Pain Gaming as well, Curry's new. Wise's actually never won a title in CBLOL either. I think there is a lot for them to learn as well. And given what the upward trajectory we've seen from Pain Gaming, I think they'll learn a lot from international. But funnily enough, I actually think the team that would learn the most from international camp has no shot at making it, but probably would have been Furia to me. I think that team has a lot of potential, a lot of young talent. If they could have made it there, I think they'd have improved massively.
They would get the most. From it.
IU could have a
they would have a very bad shot of making out of play-ins.
Yeah, I think they would get rinsed. Yeah.
I mean, IU doesn't have to go because he's already been in the teaser video, so he's actually already been. True. According to Riot's video team, he's already been. So
I've come.
So has FNB.
So
that's
weird.
true. FNB went there.
So
God, that
weird.
was so crazy.
We're never gonna stop bringing it up.
The IU one didn't hurt. I laughed because I was like, okay, he went to EU and now you think he's good because he rinsed EU.
Yeah,
sure, understandable. But obviously you don't follow CPLOL if you think he was going to make it. The FNB one though, oh man, dude,
that hurt, man.
Yeah, that one hurts quite a lot.
Should have.
He still should have. Yeah, so if Red goes there's the return of Bronze is really cool. Frosty gets a lot of big experience there. We finally see FNB at International, which we've all been calling for literal years. Aegis back on the stage. Aegis got a massive fan base overseas when he went to MSI that one time, so he gets the brand build. And then Grevthar as well was there back at MSI and actually was arguably the best performer on that Red MSI roster, I think, on balance over the course of that. Maybe it's Aegis, maybe Titan, but I think Grevthar is in that conversation. So Red has a lot of good individual narratives going into that. Would they, as a team and an org, learn the most? I don't think so.
No. I don't think Red would absorb anything from that.
I don't think so.
Red would just do what Red wants to do. And hey, that would be really fun for everybody else though, watching Brazil play the Brazil way.
Wise, absolutely.
Yeah.
You send the most Brazilian.
They're playing the best version of Brazilian play right now.
Yes.
it's messy, it's loud and brash, but they're playing at a very high level within that kind of sphere.
To be fair, I actually don't think I think Red would have a better international performance than Loud. I said this last split too.
Oh yes,
but
I actually agree with that.
I genuinely think Red would perform better.
I think they could. I think they've got a higher ceiling, but I think
given what we've seen from Loud,
they could also show.
I think
No. But Loud, like they at least show like kind of like. I don't know, man. Maybe you're right. I don't think I'm ready to like
it is true.
definitively.
The Red formula could completely flop. Because, like, you don't even go into a group stage, you go into a bracket and you play 2 best-of series. And you could just flop twice pretty quickly and lose. Like, I think that is highly possible with the Red formula. I think their capability and their ceiling is notably higher than Loud's just generally right now. And especially international, they could actually be able to really steamroll over like an evenly matched opponent in that best-of series, where I just don't have faith in Loud to do it anymore. But they could also, in the same way that Loud folded like quite abruptly at times, I think that the Red formula, I don't know if they'd be able to solve a problem once it kind of arose. Like if it starts to not work, I think it's just going to keep not working.
See, but that's my problem. Y'all have costed me. You know what I'm like? Like I'd rather see a team go out in a blaze of glory. And the problem is, you're right. Loud does inexplicably fold, which they shouldn't. At least if Red do it, we knew it was coming. And we also know that they're inexplicably going to just flare up and take random wins they have no business.
Yeah, Aegis is not going to take the Bjergsen route out of Worlds. You know, that's it's just not going to be him. So yeah, I think Red would be a fun one. Furia would maybe absorb the most because they have the most potential still untapped, clearly, and there are some very fun narratives there. Between Pain and BKS, we'd be happy for either of them to go. I think they both have a good shot of outperforming Loud, notably, and Pain does have a potential. I think Pain, just because there's a lot of some older elements there, like with Wiser, and I don't think Titan learns anything from Worlds necessarily. I don't think he comes back and goes, I am now a different player than I was before I went to Worlds this time. I don't think that happens. He's been to International before. Structurally, dynamically, he's the same guy. I think he'll get great practice, and it will help elongate and potentially raise his ceiling a little bit and elongate his career. Getting to international and getting that experience and that practice for players who've been around a long time, I think getting to international helps them like maintain and potentially improve on themselves. But I don't think we're going to learn necessarily for Titan. And if anything, he's already seems to have learned how to not run it down, so he doesn't really need to learn that still. So he's kind of good, you know. Yeah,
I don't know. Titan's a bit of a mystery for me because the way he plays does not match what everybody, like all his coaches and his teammates say about him. Like all his coaching teams, like this guy's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
he's like one of the most intelligent
really
players
smart.
you'll ever meet.
Great calls. He like,
and then you watch the way he plays, and you're just like, this is smart. Like we are eating forward on Ezreal with no flash up, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But at the same time, it's like that's why I'm kind of hesitant. It's like I do wonder. I agree. I don't think his style will change. Too much. But at the same time, if he's as smart as everybody says he is, and I do believe that. I do think that a lot of times what we just see as observers is very one-dimensional of a player. So I would like to believe Titan would improve. Now, how that tangibly manifests would be the big question.
And like, they go to international, right? Realistically, who are we scrimming as the CBL team? We're scrimming the other playing teams. We're scrimming NA and EU,
North
maybe?
America.
Right? So we're going to scrim Team Liquid and get absolutely rinsed every single game.
No, forget Team Liquid. We're going to scrim Shopify. Titan's going to face B-Boy.
Shopify at Worlds,
Unironically, if you send Jaden CL, you might get better scrim partners. Like, given that Worlds is in Europe, you probably get hella good ERL practice, which maybe that's oxymoronic, really good ERL practice. Maybe that's not a thing.
The follow-up of this point was you either scrim LCS and you either get absolutely face-rolled by Liquid, probably face-rolled by C9, and maybe have some fun scrims with FlyQuest, or you scrim against EU, who are not actually good at the game anymore. So what are you learning from G2 and Mad Lions and Fnatic, who are just hilariously skilled at losing games they should win at this point? They will take Los Grandes to task over losing games they should win. Like,
you know what?
I don't think it's
that's why we need Loud at Worlds, because Croc can just call his dads and go like, hey, we need good scrim practice.
Yeah, please EDG, please PSG, come and scrim us. Thank you. Jinja, please help me. I need some guidance right now.
Gam, let's go.
Yeah, man. I think Gam is going, right? I think Gam's qualified. So
Yeah, Gam.
Yeah, they have qualified, correct.
So you can get maybe some decent scrims against like Gam and I don't know if PSG even would at this point. But like I think a lot of your scrim partners either just might not be. There's a potential that they're just not very useful scrim partners. So it really depends on who you go with. But yeah, basically Pain VKS, we're happy for both of them. I think they're both going to be good. Is the ending takeaway there. And I think that's it. I think that's it for us today. We're sitting at just about 1 hour 20 odd, so a standard episode size really for us. Next week it is Saturday, Sunday again, and we have Loud Furia
Saturday,
and Pain VKS. So both high potential. Loud Furia will get another look at how Loud is and how both Loud and Furia have responded to the trials and tribulations that have befallen them so far in playoffs. And Pain VKS is just going to be an absolute giga banger match, highest quality probably league that we'll see until the grand finals when they play again. So join us again on Twitch at usual times there. CBLOL_English, Twitter CBLOL_English, and TikTok CBLOL English. Join the community Discord. You can ask us questions. We'll answer them on the podcast, and you can chat with us and a bunch of the lovely people that love to talk about CBLOL English.
And you know what?
Yes.
Let's add a bit of a spice. We've got a secret coming in on Saturday. So make sure you tune in for Saturday.
We do.
This is true.
We don't even know what it is. So
so there's a secret. There's a mystery. We genuinely don't know what it is.
We literally have no idea. So you'll have to watch to find out because we ain't got no idea. So have a good rest of your day, everybody, and we'll see you on Saturday, Sunday for more CBLOL English playoffs.